Well, Caleb was acting like he was going to be on, but I guess he ended up taking his kid or whatever.
Who knows?
You know how them kids are.
Yes. Are we talking about Caleb or his kid?
Yeah. That's Scott's son. Caleb is his illegitimate son.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. How's the house?
He's probably high school on a curve or something.
Man, Dean, I stopped by and saw Scott's house. It is badass.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that maybe in the next 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Man, you got a gas card.
Yeah, you got get all the gas you want. You can gas up your boat.
I can afford it now.
Yeah, I wish.
Come on over. We'll go to La Terraza. Margaritas on John.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Should be fun. I like that first topic, so we'll get going. All right, here we go. Podcast. We got a lively one for you today, I promise. I don't break promises. I'm John Lopez. Captain Dean Thomas is across from me. Captain Scott Knoll is across from me. And we got an array of topics for you. All kinds of stuff happening. We'll go over what's been happening on the water lately, as well as what to expect. Man, I'm loving this weather. Ooh, baby, who's not, right? We got... like I said, an array of topics. Some of these were holdovers from last week, so keep them coming. You can message me via the Facebook group page, or hell, put one right here if you're listening to us live on the YouTube channel. We've gotten some great feedback on those YouTube shorts. I'm going to do about 2 or 3 of those a week. Captain Dean doesn't know this, but I'm taking a couple of days off this week, so I'll be going down on Wednesday evening to Aransas Pass, and I'm going to see, I'm going to make Dean give me a little how the sausage is made tour of his place there, and some of the things, and maybe even how he's tying some of those knots. You know what I was thinking about? We'll get into this here in just a second. But you and Dean tie different knots than, well, maybe not. I do the uni knot on my leaders and stuff. But I think you guys tie different knots. That's one of those things we're doing with the Bite Me Shorts, sort of illustrating some of the topics that we discuss here. Maybe get Wrangle Dean into doing some behind the scenes stuff, getting ready for a trip and all the things that he's got going there. But that's for the Bite Me Shorts. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll keep those going. They're anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes. We got a 10-minute one coming up. Cap Scott did one. We'll probably post next week about what it's really like to be a guide. And that was an interesting discussion right there. Some of the things that these guys do to keep you guys fishing, keep you guys catching fish and happy on the water. But last thing before we get started here, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. There it is. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and join the Bite Me group page on Facebook. Just search Bite Me Fishing, et cetera, et cetera. We got a lot of messages coming in live already. But let's start right here. We have a bunch of topics on light winds not being necessarily good all the time. Some extra prep you need for the conditions that we experienced this past week, and maybe some this week, certainly some this week. High winds, high tides, off color. How does that make you prepare differently? What do you do differently, et cetera? And sunny versus overcast. This was a holdover for about 3 weeks, so I want to get to it today from a listener as well. But let's start right here. We have people all over the country who listen to the podcast, and we really appreciate that. We have a lot of people who are Texas Rangers fans here across the great state of Texas and the Southwest, where we have a lot of listeners. We have a lot of Astros fans, and the 3 guys talking to you right now, and as well as Caleb, are big Astros fans. And so this came up as the Astros were losing yesterday, and we're all griping about Martin Maldonado. Why is he catching again? When are you going to pinch hit for him? So I asked this question very seriously, and feel free to weigh in as you're listening to us or text in on the group page when I post this on the group page, and it's good to go. on all the places you get your podcast. What or who is your Martin Maldonado of fishing? And what I mean by that, because one immediately popped into mind for me. So that, in other words, that person, place, maybe a bait, maybe a piece of gear that you are absolutely blindly loyal to, like Dusty Baker is with Martin Maldonado. And for me, it's this. So about 20 years ago, at least 20 years ago, I was in East Matagorda. Obviously, as you guys may know, I've spent a bleep ton of time fishing East Matagorda over the last 30 years. And I was on this one spot, which is not a normal go-to. I saw some things or whatever. I don't even really remember how I ended up there. And I caught back-to-back a couple of monster trout, like fat 28s, bang, bang, caught them back-to-back. And then I proceeded over the next 2 hours. And usually it shuts down in less time than that. But for the next 2 hours, me and a couple of buddies proceeded to catch probably 45, 50 trout. It got to the point where we were catching 21 and 22-inch trout. And we were like, yeah, that's all right. That's a good trout. I mean, it's decent, because they were all 24, 26, 28. So for 20 years, that one spot has been my Martin Maldonado spot. I've gone back probably 300 times, pretty much every time I fish, probably more than 300 times. If I'm wrapping up a day or whatever, I'm like, man, let me try this spot one more time. And I go back. I have not caught squat. I mean, occasionally maybe a trout, maybe a red, just a passerby, so to speak. But that spot is my Martin Maldonado spot. Maybe it's gear for you. Maybe it's a person who's bad luck. What's up, Delaney? Or something like that. But Dean, I want to start with you.
Man, I think everybody has one of those.
That was a little drive-by at the human banana. But that's okay. By the way, Caleb is actually participating via the text board. We'll get to some of that here in a minute. Maybe Caleb, you can share some of that information. But Dean, what or who is your Martin Maldonado of fishing?
I mean, it's spots and gear. I mean, it's
let's go.
You have the spots. I mean, I have spots that I hit every day. That you've caught fish there, and you're always going to look at them. You just have the confidence in that spot. And of course, man, you remember every big fish you ever caught, and they bring you back to that spot. I mean, you can struggle, you're having a tough day. There's always your go-to. And where I'm at, on the vast flats of South Texas, if I got a bone spook junior on there bouncing over the sand holes, I mean, that's my go-to. But there's always those. I think everybody does have that. Everybody has that memory of that one time they got that fish, and they're always going to go back to that spot. And the thing about that, when you go there and you have faith in it, you're going to put a little more effort into it. You're going to make a few more casts.
Mm-hmm.
You just
confident.
It can happen there. So it keeps bringing you back. But yeah, Spook Junior and, a couple of my favorite go-to spots, which, I mean, you're getting tuned into my area pretty good. You're out there catching my fish now. I'm gonna have to pull the plug on your boat.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I'm gonna loosen up anything. The plug. Something.
I sent Dean this picture of my son BG's, the big old fat 23-inch trout. I was like, dang, we caught some little small reds and some small trout. It really wasn't that great. We just had a lot of action.
And that same day, I was struggling. I told you, man. I got it handed to me pretty good that day. And then John is sending me pictures of these big old speckled trout, and he was in my Maldonado.
What about people or gear? Because I'm also thinking, I'm not going to mention his name, Armin, but I'm also thinking of some people that I've taken out, and I'm like so determined to get them on fish because they just got the bug so bad. And I'm like,
Well,
well,
the ones that you want the
dang.
most are the hardest to come by. I get the ones that drive me crazy is we take a lot of vets fishing, and these guys come down and it's their one chance, and you're out there and you just want it so bad for these guys. And then, if you struggle, you have a tough day with them. I don't know why it works out that way, if it's a mental issue or it's just, fishing luck, the way it works out. But what happens with me is I take the people that I want them to get that fish the most, and you struggle, you don't get it. And the very next day, you're not out there for 15 minutes and you got some guy that booked a trip and he brought his girlfriend that, she's like, yeah, I'll tag along. I'll go. Really didn't want to be there. And within 15 minutes, she's holding up, a trout or a redfish of a lifetime. And she's like, is this a good one? What kind of fish is this? After you spent 8 hours the day before beating up the water, and then you turn around and it's like, why couldn't that happen yesterday? But
you should have been here tomorrow.
It's the way that cookie crumbles out there.
Yeah, you should have been here tomorrow. All right, Caleb has joined us, but I'm going to go to Scott first here. Who or what is your Martin Maldonado of fishing, Scott?
I've got an area that I smoked the tarpon in one time. I've caught a lot of tarpon there. I probably caught more tarpon in that little area than anywhere else, about a 500-yard stretch. And the last 2 years, I have not caught a tarpon there. I still go there every day. I still check it. I still have to look at it.
That's my spot.
I can't help myself. I've got to go look. I got to get there. And it's just been a dud this year for whatever reason. Nothing's changed. The bottom's the same. Currents are the same. Everything the same. And the tarpon just don't want to be there right now for whatever reason. But the person is Delaney. I mean, I wanted her to catch a damn fish so bad. Can't do it.
See, I was right. I was right.
You would be the first one of us that pulled it off.
I know.
Hey, it's up to me, man.
We even pulled
Come on, Delaney.
We even pulled up on a triple tail. I don't think I told y'all that. We had a triple tail that was hanging on the surface, and we drove right up to it, and it went down. And I said, "Okay, just hold on a minute. It'll come back up." It came back up. She made a good cast on it, and it disappeared again. It just went, nah, I ain't playing. I'm done.
She's gonna come down here.
Is that Delaney?
Some weather phenomenon is gonna happen.
Your boat is going to sink is what's going to happen. A weather phenomenon would be a lucky break.
As far as like lures,
Caleb, we'll get back. I was going to say lures and people, lures and other things. You just go. You just go top water no matter what. Yeah.
My fuel gauge.
Wait, what?
My fuel gauge, John.
That's your Martin Maldonado.
My freaking fuel gauge, man.
Even
it's the gauge, right, Caleb?
Gauge, you gotta know if there's gas or not in the boat.
Listen, I've went over this. Multiple times a day. Here's the problem: my boat gets about 10 miles to the gallon, and that makes you a bit bold. All right. Mm-hmm. I think today was the 4th day I've fished on it, and I flipped it on this morning. I'm like, oh, I got half a tank. Shit, I can fish another month. We're good.
So let's just get it out of the way. You ran out of gas today.
I did run out of gas today. Ain't got no gas.
He's a professional.
So what happened?
Dude, I ran out of gas, dickhead. That's what happened. I don't know how I made it to the show today.
Oh, somehow this is my fault. That you ran out of gas.
So I get in my boat this morning, and Taylor and I fished a couple of days ago, and the whole day I'm like, bro, look at the mileage on this thing. It hasn't moved off F yet. This is amazing. And so
it's making gas.
But yeah, I can't afford to not burn gas in this thing. I'm making money. And so very few people know that during the World Series, before the World Series, I was over here pre-fishing. I was in Texas pre-fishing, and I'm talking like home waters. And I was running my skiff around, and I knew the 5 or 6 places I went to, and I kind of knew the mileage in them. And then when we decided to fish the other day, I was like, yeah, oh, shit, I'm good, you know. And so Taylor and I went, and it's still in full. I'm like, huh. And then today, me and Jimmy we went to record videos for YouTube and this and that. And we get about halfway through what we're doing. I'm like, oh, it just moved to half a tank. That's odd, but we're good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's odd. At that point, I'm committed, right? And so, I can't. You notice if you're watching on the live stream, I can't look at the camera right now because I'm ashamed of what happened. But we come out of one spot and we're in this big back lake, and there's this little narrow island that separates the other one. And we've been looking all morning for fish, and they should have been everywhere, but they weren't because the barometer was high. And I look over in the other pond and I see some fish milling about. Let's go. I was like, let's go over there. And I jumped up and I ran about 100 yards and and I looked at Jimmy, and Jimmy's my camera guy, and the poor guy, every time he's with me, something catastrophic happens. He was the guy with me whenever we didn't run up on land because we hit a tree. He's always that guy. The fishing always sucks when Jimmy's there. Something bad always happens when Jimmy's there. And dude, just flat ass out of gas. But my gauge is still on half a tank. We're good. My calculations, we still have another 60 miles left.
You know, these things almost seem to happen when anybody's with you.
You know, to be fair, I've got a guy flying in from Alabama to fish with me on Friday, and I'm probably going to fill it up with gas before we do that.
I would recommend that you did, to be honest. I mean, I'm not the pro here.
Yeah.
I would say
my Maldonado is 2 things: wind finder, because that was good one time, and my fuel gauge, because it lasted me a season. My fuel gauge had a great season, but kind of struggling now.
Well,
go ahead, Scott.
I mean, motors run on gas, and they use gas, so you got to put gas in there when you keep using it. I mean,
so did the wire pop off, or did the gauge go bad? What's the conclusion?
I think the float stuck. From all the gas I didn't use.
You think?
Sticking it. Yeah.
Well, okay, show of hands here.
But here's the good part.
The gauge on a boat. Does anybody
ever trust? That's what I was.
I have not had a mechanical gauge on a boat in the past 6 years. I've used the Mercury, the ECM or whatever that gives me the fuel burn. Like, I haven't had to deal with this. But Scott, you got the same talking I did whenever you got the Sabine. Don't fill it all the way up, because if it gets hot, the gas comes out, gets on your sea deck. And so I was like, well, there's no reason to fill it up. Anyway.
Well, you have to put some in it. I mean, you don't have to fill it up, but you have to put some in there.
The funny part of it is we're sitting probably about 15 miles from the boat ramp. And I told Jimmy, I was like, I need 1 gallon of gas to fish the rest of the day and drive home. That's all we need. 1 freaking gallon.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's pretty accurate. But here's the good. Here's the silver lining is I saw these fish working in this lake next door, and in my mind, they were in the very back of the lake, and there's shell pads or stuff you want to stay on plane for to get to them. And I'm a little bit worried about running in there and spooking them. I didn't have to worry about that. We trolled all of it. My trolling motor blade has nothing left on it because it went through about a 1/4 mile of 3-inch deep shell. And by God, we made it. And we caught fish.
Hey,
how'd you get back?
But the pressure was high and you caught fish. How'd that happen?
I caught 3, Scott. Yesterday, when the barometer was still freaking falling, Mike Ashworth sent me videos of acres of birds and everywhere he ever went. And today I'm like, oh man, it is on. We're going to get so much video made. I saw 1 school of 6 fish. And Jeremy Compton called me and said Scott Knoll is full of crap. Larry Higgins called me, said Scott Knoll is full of crap. You got teamed up on. Dude, I will post text.
Hey, Dean's in that same boat, so to speak. Dean's not a big high barometer guy.
I'll post screenshots on the Facebook page. It'll happen.
By the way,
Knoll was the whipping boy today.
Sean Scamardo says, sounds like Jimmy and Delaney need to go with you. What would happen if you had Jimmy and Delaney on your boat?
Oh, God. Well,
it'd be the apocalypse. There would be like locusts. There would be a swarm of locusts.
Running out of gas would be the least of my problems. Running out of gas would have been
ran out of gas and then not caught fish.
Yeah.
At least
because of a high barometer.
And then when Preston Harris, thank you for bringing me gas. When he brought me gas, a fire would have started on the front of my boat.
By the way, I have never, ever trusted a fuel gauge, ever. Like I've used it maybe as a little bit of a hint. Okay, maybe I got a few gallons here or there. I don't know of all the things we can do on a boat, and we've got side scan, and we've got spot lock, and we've got all these great things going on, Dean. I have never found a boat that has a very accurate fuel gauge.
I always trust mine because you can see that when you put the gas in, it goes to the F side. And then slowly, as the day progresses, it slowly goes to the other side.
They're not real accurate. My experience has been they're not as accurate as they should be.
To be fair, whenever Preston brought me gas and I put gas in it, didn't a damn thing change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're past that at this point.
The hint should have been that you've been running it for how long and it hadn't moved?
Closely about a month.
Yeah.
Good
yeah.
Lord. First of all, I'd be so paranoid.
In my previous profession, we called that a clue.
Yeah. That's evidence.
You got a hot chip coming in.
Well,
that's evidence.
The thing that because so the three people that I'm closest with in life, there would be four of them, but Scott doesn't answer my damn phone calls. But the three people that I'm closest with in life is Justin Lowry, Robert Jones, and Taylor Roth. And Taylor and Robert, I texted both of them right when it happened. I'm like, hey, who's off of work today? And then they intrinsically texted Robert to let him in on it. But the whole time we fished this weekend, me and Taylor, I was talking about what great mileage this boat gets. And look, the needle isn't even moving. So I have been bro been fighting for his life all day. Okay. It's been rough on my group text thread.
Well, it probably should be. Any lures, Caleb? Any lures that you just go back to our colors or something?
I'm not going to go with lures. My Maldonado, and it's funny because every time I'm doing a YouTube video, anytime I'm doing podcast, anytime I did it today on the boat doing these videos, and there are certain times of year that there just isn't going to be fish in 1 foot of water, 18 inches of water that's way back in a marsh. It's too hot. It's this and that. I go check it every single stinking time. I have to go look at it, and they're not there, but I go look at it I did it today. I told the camera guy before we went back there, I was like, it's a little bit early yet. Whenever as this tide's falling and the water's cooling off, which it was 60 degrees this morning at daylight. It was 71 when I left. But as this water's cooling off, they're going to start going back there. I knew dang well they weren't going to be back there, and I went and spent an hour back there anyway. I do it every single time. And that's why you can trust me when I tell you it sucks back there, because I'm going to check it.
Yeah. I did have a couple of slight boat ramp confessionals before we move on. One was this right here. If you're watching on the YouTube live feed, my favorite son. Now I got 2 pair of backups that I keep. One of them has a little scratch. The other one's fine. But these are my favorite pair of glasses. And I just did this. I just took them off, and look at the top, just popped right off. So,
do you have any super glue?
No, the lens popped out into the water. Otherwise, I would.
Oh, it's gone.
Hey, I was measuring. Go ahead.
Tell you what, save those for Jimmy Gwynn, because he's one-eyed right now.
Is it his right eye?
Detached retina. Yeah, his detached retina is in his left eye, so that'd work. I mean, he only needs one lens.
I'll tell you what, I will.
Hang with those.
I kind of like this look. I look like a pirate.
John, let me go ahead and let me throw this at you, John. If you're looking for an endorsement for sunglasses and you just did that in front of 500,000 listeners, it's not really the best way to get them.
No, I'm not. My guy Mike Butler's got me taken care of. He's already ordered me a new pair of these. This is my favorite. These are the ReefCon Pro from Costa. They're fantastic. These are the ones that you tipped me off to, Caleb. Yeah, they're absolutely the favorite, best I've ever had.
Reefton Pros are awesome.
Yeah, so a little unpaid endorsement there. And then the other slight, very slight, I might say, boat ramp confessional I had this weekend is I was kind of in a hurry to get back for the Texans and all that stuff. So I had a good day fishing, and all that stuff. I was all happy. My nephew and niece were with me, so they were happy. They caught fish. My son, he caught the big trout. And I'm like, I'm not even going to power wash. I always power wash my boat, but this time I just sprayed it off, got all my stuff, got in the truck. Boom, let's go. Took it. I'm in Victoria already. Stopped for some gas. Turned to my wife and said, "Where's my wallet?" Well, my wallet right now is in Dean's back pocket because I left it on the boat. So I've been riding dirty. Scott, tell all your police buddies not to stop me.
We've been living high on the hog in the Aransas Pass down here. Margaritas for everybody.
Caleb's going to come down and get a full tank of gas in the Sabine.
Yeah, Dean's telling Caleb, "I got you, man. How much you need?"
Dean got that barbecue sauce money in his pocket.
Oh boy. All right, let's get to some other topics here now that nonsense is done. This was not from a listener, but I was out there Saturday and then Sunday, and Saturday was just ridiculous. Yeah, you had to be an idiot to be out there. So of course I was with my son. And I'm thinking like, okay, because I did a few other things on Sunday. It was going to be a little breezy, not quite as bad, but still pretty breezy. So I started like doing other things. I said, I'm going to ask the boys this. Is there any, or what is the extra prep, the extra planning, whatever you want to call it, that you do when conditions are not ideal? Now mine on this past weekend was high winds, and I adjusted accordingly. High tides, maybe off color water. I know that happens a lot in Matagorda when we get to Caleb. But Scott, I'm going to start with you on this. Like, it. You're going fishing. There's going to be any of those things or something else that comes to mind for you, whether it's high winds, high tides, off color water, or something else. Like, what are there any particular in those instances, like different type prep, different type planning that you do?
You look at the direction for what I do with the pole and skiff. I'm looking at the direction of the wind, and then I'm thinking about places I can go where we're going to be going downwind today, boys. We're going to do drive-by fishing. We're going to probably try to spot some fish, but mostly just throw at the points as we're coming up on them, because we're going to go too fast to ease in and spot a fish and set up and get a good cast on it and all that. It'll be quick. Yeah, it's overcast. It's going to be an overcast day, and we're still trying to sight fish. High water, overcast, whatever. I'm going to put on my yellow lens glasses, the Sunset Costas, so I can see down in the water a little bit better. Those are my main two problems that I end up with. I don't typically have the dirty water problem too much around here. If I was in an area that had dirty water, then you got to plan on throwing something that's got a little more noise to it. A bigger paddle tail, a top water. Something that's going to be flashy. When we did it in the tournaments, I'd throw a spinner bait a lot. If we were fishing Galveston, Sabine, Louisiana, something like that, where we ran into some dirty water, I'd start throwing that, or maybe a popping cork and a gulp. You never know.
Wait, what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, in a tournament situation,
I bet he got both lenses and his sunglasses too.
Yeah, I always make sure I have both lenses.
I try to make sure I got both lenses. Those are the main things. My biggest thing is the wind. Day in, day out with the poling. If it's going to be above 14, 15 miles an hour, then I really have to start planning my route more so than I do. When it's lighter, I can pole into the wind at 10 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour. It's not a big deal. But once it gets above that, then it starts getting a little tougher. and you gotta watch the open water kind of stuff and try not to round a point where you're going to get beat up and have to go back into the wind. As on the tarpon, it's just a go or no go. I mean, if the conditions aren't there, you just don't go, or you get caught outside the jetties and you take a couple of them over the console like I did a couple weeks ago.
Over the bow, over the center console. Hey,
I took
Dean,
over the windshield.
Dean, I want to ask you about high tides. That's something that you've been dealing with. We've been dealing with everywhere. How do you prepare differently? Is there anything that you really kind of keep top of mind when you know there's going to be high tides? Even if the tide's dropping, it's going to stay higher than normal.
Well, they gone now.
Yeah.
It was
all right.
Next. I'm done dealing with that. No, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go further onto the shallows. I'm going to go to places that I couldn't get to last week or before. You just kind of chase that tide. You run up as far as you can get for sight casting, the ability to drift. And then, when you take the wind, just like Scott said, you take the wind into consideration and you run as far as into the shallow as you can, and then you commit to the drift is what I call it, and you let the wind blow you. You try to set it up where you're going to blow back to deep water, where you're going to drift out to an area where you can take off. But whenever the tide is up like that, I just skim as far as I can and set it up where I drift back to deeper water.
Yeah.
What about
now, short answer to that one?
Yeah. Now, Caleb, I'm going to ask you the other part of this, and that's something that we deal with a lot in East Matagorda and Matagorda, off-color water. How are you dealing with that? Because you're going fishing, you got to go, and you got to find the right water. I know it's got to be more involved than just, well, I think it's going to be here. Obviously, experience comes into play, but what else?
This man just said, I deal with high water by waiting 5 days. That's what I heard. Dirty water.
And
dirty water. I'm going darker on plastics with paddle tails. Like Scott said, with the other thing, I want to create vibration. I want darker. Darker seems to contrast better. I've never proven it, but I have read that vertical contrasting lines, like a red and white lure, stuff like that, seem to do better in dirty water. I've prescribed to that. I use that. Or I'll move to a top water or the greatest. He's setting this stuff up, y'all. He's setting it up. The best tool for dirty water is a pop and cork and a gulp. He's doing this on purpose, Scott.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What'd you say? I missed that too. Yeah.
I mean, when John gets here on Wednesday, I'm having 6 rods and 6 popping corks rigged up, ready to go.
But a popping
We're going to do it. We're going to put an end to this controversy.
Now on dirty water, I will not.
No, we're not. No, we're not. You'll be surprised.
My leader is a bit shorter on a popping cork and a gulp in dirty water. Say it. I mean, how do I prepare for conditions that doesn't involve fishing? If there was one more host, would he be asked, what would you do if you didn't have to fish like women and children? Would you ask him that? Anyway, top water, stuff that makes noise and moves water. That's what I'm looking at in dirty water.
Hey, I stand on my record.
Did you knock a lens out of that?
What you're looking at in dirty water.
You set that pop cork a little bit hard. It took that left eye out, didn't it?
I
was just taking them off is the same thing as calling a rod builder and saying I broke my rod on a 12-inch trout. We all call, didn't happen. You took a 4 horseman. You took a 4 horseman in the forehead. That's what happened.
For the record, for those who haven't been listening every week, and you can go back and listen to all the podcasts. They're a lot of fun. I throw a popping cork about 20% of the time at the most, but I love it. Now, I will say this. I had my nephew and niece on with me and my son this weekend. So what did I put them on? And what did they catch fish with? You're damn right. You're damn right. Popping corks. It's easy
every time I see a popping cork loose where it's broke off and floating in the south, it's like John has been here.
John was here.
The little red and green one with the football size weight on the top of it.
I'll never look at a popping cork the same again.
Hey, we all have our thing, man. Last thing on this though, I think Scott was talking about this, about the drifting and all that, and the wind and making sure you got a good drift. Actually, Dean talked about it too. But Scott, one other thing that I think is important is a lot of times when you find that good pocket of water or whatever it is where you're going to drift, make sure that that's not just a teeny area, because there are areas that are maybe more protected and you can take longer drifts. That's what I do. That's what I did this past weekend. It was really, really windy. I was telling my son, we can go here, but it's going to be a lot of little quick drift. Let's try it a little bit. But I was picking long drifts on a long protected shoreline. Just gives you a little more time, to cover water.
That's what I mean by I set up my day based on that wind. Yeah, I know that I've got this shoreline and I can hit 4 or 5 different types of areas and still be productive, but not have to fight the wind.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of wind, got this message last week from Captain Dean. We're talking about real windy. Dean, you were experiencing the exact opposite of that. No wind, like practically zero wind. And you texted the group here and you said, it's not necessarily always a good thing. What are you talking about there?
And so, that was, I was fishing with the biggest fan of the podcast, John Cope. We were out there and he actually, when I was sitting there kind of discussing what was going on, he's like, man, that'd be a good subject for you guys to talk about. And then it popped up on the Facebook conversation. I posted the pictures and I said we had challenging conditions with no wind. And they were like, how is no wind challenging? But it doesn't move the boat. It doesn't create current. On a slack tide with no wind, I mean, you can watch fish swim around the boat. You can cast at them and they just show zero interest. So waves conceal your lure, or they kind of disguise it a little bit. They can get a really good look at it. And when fish are singled out, they're very difficult to catch like that. If you get a group of them, even a small school, 3 or 5 fish, the competition factor takes over when they see it. They'll come and kind of fight over it. But singled out fish with complete no wind, no tide is a very difficult fish to catch. I mean, we saw plenty and then you're on the troll motor, to make the boat move around. So the troll motor is going to alert them that you're there. None of this is etched in stone. I mean, some days if they're in a good mood, it will help. But when it's just complete zero wind and slack tide, you're going to see a lot of fish that you can't catch. So, I mean, I like a little breeze to move the water. And even so it's been interesting for the past couple of weeks because we've had these fronts where we get 20-mile-an-hour winds for a couple of days and then it slacks off in between and then it switches back to south and kind of goes back to normal. And those in between days, those bluebird, beautiful days in between, the bite is tough. And then once the wind kicks up again, they get in a little better mood. So slack wind is it as inviting as it is to be out there. It's beautiful to be above the water, but it doesn't help for aggressive fish.
And then there's Caleb, the noise factor. And I know we all like to have a good time on the boat. When it's real calm, real quiet, I just am extra quiet myself, man. I mean, maybe it makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. I know Scott has agreed with me in the past on this. Scott, Caleb wasn't listening.
Caleb just went out. I don't know what.
I've got him though. That's okay. Go ahead. So Scott,
he's still messing with Delaney on the messages
okay.
here. But no, I enjoy it when it's a calm day, but it has to be 2 or 3 days like that in a row. The first day after a serious blow, when it's been blowing hard, south, north, whatever it is, that next morning when it dawns dead calm, those fish are spooky as hell. And my thought has always been that, they got so used to all the noise from all the splashing and crashing going on, and with the waves and the wind and all that, that when it got quiet, it's kind of like when we are out in the, the day to day, and then you go into a really quiet room. It's almost kind of weird feeling. But it's hard for me not to like the light winds because we're poling around fly fishing. And what I found, those spooky fish that Dean's talking about that don't want to eat, if we're just easing into them on the poling skiff, which Dean hates poling skiffs, but if we're just easing into them like that and throwing flies at them, a lot of times we can get them to eat on those single fish that are real finicky and spooky. I think just throwing something smaller and smaller and keep going smaller until you figure it out. But I mean, I really enjoy the light wind days. It makes my life a whole lot easier. I can spot the fish better. We can get multiple casts to them.
All I'm saying is life is full of choices, and there's a reason that big boats were invented.
I've got one.
That's right. That's right.
Well, the only thing better than having one boat is 2 boats.
So Dean makes fishing is commenting here. Found a back late this morning, less than a foot, no wind. Crawlers that were super spooky. They were aggressive with shrimp and lures. They would smack it and then run. That's the other thing here that we're talking about. The bite itself when there's no wind.
There's a lot of variables to that equation. Of course, there's days when they're still going to eat. They're still going to hit it. But I mean, it's on our flats that are like really clear water and you see fish. Once you get within range where you can see them, if you're on the troll motor, they kind of become aware that the boat is there. There's days that their careless behavior will override that situation and they will come and eat it. The day that we were talking about, we had really slack tide. It was just on a flatliner all day. And I mean, it comes and goes. You can break those rules, of course, at all times. But switching up to something that is really slow, subsurface kind of lure that will hang on their nose, if you can make that cast to them and make it look enticing, you can get them to hit. Or you just put a shrimp under a popping cork.
There you go. That's a trifecta. All 3 of y'all mentioned it. But I prefer the soft plastic, nevertheless. But that's a really good point about the lure choice, because a lot of people will just, they're not biting and they just keep throwing and popping their soft plastic. And I'm like, you're taking it right past them.
That Maldonado theory again. You go to your favorite, and sometimes you have to be creative and shift gears a little bit. The cool thing, I mean, I'm out there with guys who, I mean, you get some guys who are content to throw one lure all day long, and it's like they're going to hit this or they're not. But then you get others that are willing to change and change and change 3 casts, change a color, and then try to figure them out. It's all part of the fun. I mean, it is part of the game.
Scott, I know, you've talked about this a lot as well, like how they bite when it's real calm, changing the lure. I feel that was a good point that Dean brought up. What are you doing when you see that happening? What he was talking about on the message?
What with the calm, super calm, it's just going smaller. I've thrown bonefish flies at redfish, little number 8 crazy Charlie bonefish flies, and had them eat it. It seems like the calmer it gets, the smaller you got to go, and it's just got to be quieter. The entry into the water's got to be quieter. So a smaller, lighter fly will do that. As far as throwing regular lures, maybe something that a DOA shrimp that doesn't have a big weight on it, doesn't have any lead to it, and it lands with a little softer splash. I've seen the fish on those days, just run from a 1/8 ounce lead head hitting the water. So just trying to be a lot quieter in every way, even with your lure presentation.
And this is something I know Caleb does because I've seen him do it on his boat, to the point of when it's real calm. Even if you're using your trolling motor to get up on some redfish, let's say, that you see, I don't even change the speed of the trolling motor. I put it on, like, say 4 and just keep it steady, because everything, every noise makes a difference out there. I will say this: Caleb is back now, but he messaged me privately and said that his internet gauge said it was full. So apparently it was not. Caleb, your internet gauge wasn't full.
Welcome back, man. Man, we're over here talking about getting Delaney on a show, which I thought was a good idea, and I said, "Nah, she'll break the internet." And my internet broke when we talked about it. No,
but the gauge said it was full. You don't have one of those gauges on your internet?
Well, I did. Yeah, rough day to meet me, man.
Hey, where's your wallet?
You better go to bed early tonight.
God, dog. Cade actually has a baseball game tonight, and I'm scared for the kid since this stuff might bleed over.
Nah, your foul ball's going to hit your truck.
Probably that good old built for tough aluminum. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
But Caleb, we were talking about
get you one of them big old biker chains and attach it to your wallet so you don't lose that too.
That's right.
You are talking about that. I did just like John. I left my wallet sitting around on top of a fuel pump, and I canceled. It was gone a week. I canceled every credit card I own, which anybody knows it's a huge pain because you have auto pays and all this stuff hooked up, toll road, and God bless the man that did it. It just showed up at my house in a brown box. Just the guy found it and mailed it to me. The only thing in it that was any good was the wallet, because I canceled everything in it.
Of course.
But
well, you can't count on good Samaritans that much.
Don't text me on Facebook and be like, "Hey, I found your wallet," because I'm really hard to find. But I do appreciate getting my wallet back. I still carry the same wallet. Dead calm, quiet. Yeah. My trolling motor doesn't go above 2.5 if I think there's a redfish anywhere. I try not to turn it. You have to sometimes. Yes. If I see a fish, I'm not turning it off. I'm not turning it left. I'm not turning it right. Myself or whoever's in the boat, you have until this boat hits that fish to make that cast. I'm not changing anything. Everything's staying steady and constant. Dead calm, I might downsize to like a 1/4 ounce or an 1/8 ounce jig head if I'm in shallow water sight casting, and I want less noise. Out on the bay, it's a little bit different. I won't change my lures up as much, but I'm going to troll at a steady speed. Just everything I can do to not change anything that's happening. As I came into that fish's range, there's a hum, there's a buzz, there's whatever happens whenever a trolling motor is going, and it's kind of slowly crept up to that fish. I'm not going to do anything to change that if I can.
Wait a minute. Did you say downsize to a 1/4 ounce?
I'm sorry, from a 1/4 ounce. Downsize from a 1/4 to an 1/8. Yeah.
I didn't know they made anything bigger than that.
Oh no, homie! If you came and got in my boat and saw how many 1/2 ounce jig heads I had, you would be alarmed.
You have halves?
I will chunk a half in a heartbeat. Yes, I will.
And we throw 16th most of the time down here.
And 16th, the only thing we use for a 16th, if we go to the hood to do some hood rat stuff. That's the only time I'm getting a 16th around here.
You know what else you can use a 16th on? And let me give you a hint. I got a lot of them.
The girls at the dancing bar.
No.
Yeah.
16th bar. I'm gonna do a whole tutorial just to piss all y'all off on my different setups for popping cork. Like a fluorocarbon with a 16th ounce, just kind of flutters down real slow, nice and slow. Boom! Get that fish, baby.
Why is everything turned into popping cork conversation?
Y'all brought it up. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, but I am going to do that video. That's for dang sure. All right, let's talk about drifting. This is a question from one of our listeners, and it's an age-old question. I don't know if there is a right answer here, but maybe you can learn a thing or two. I'm going to start with Dean on this one. We all do a lot of drift fishing, so I think all three guys should weigh in if they have anything to add here. Here's the question. If one person on my boat catches a fish on a drift, I never know if I should stop or drift a bit more or how I should play that. Are there any signs you have? Is it a gut feel? What do you see? Dean, that you're drifting along. There's one fish caught. What are you doing?
Well, it's going to depend on the type of area that I'm in. If I'm on the grass flats and the sand holes and drifting long distances, I'm not going to stop for that fish. But if it's a drop off, if it's a precise location to where the it's going to matter, where it's like a sandbar or a gut or a specific little hole, then I'm going to stop there and give it a few minutes. But drifting the vast flats, you know, where we're covering area, man, you catch one, you hook one, you just keep drifting and keep casting. But if you're on a drop off, those edges, and you do hit one, there's places where they congregate, man. You'll find a little school, and then you do want to spend a few extra minutes in a spot like that.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing with Cade and his little buddies. There's little, we call them popcorn reefs in Matagorda. You know, a little reef that's 6-8 foot big. I think I have every one of them marked. I really do. And whenever I've got Cade and his buddies, I'll power pole down and stop it where they can get right to that reef, and those kids will catch 15 fish a piece off that reef. Now, they may not all be trout or redfish or something, but they will catch the heck out of them. And that's where I put on the brakes. If it's me and Scott and Dean and John fishing, the brakes don't come on. But if I really want to get on an area and let somebody catch fish, I'll put the brakes on all day long whenever I know where they're at.
Scott, the only thing that I was going to see if you could add is, to me, I'm listening to the guys and I'm like, it also depends on the fish you're catching, because trout and the time of year, you know, trout and the time of year, I might be more inclined to stop at certain times, Scott.
Yeah, trout's a different ball game than reds completely, you know, as far as drifting and having to stop. And the reds typically are going to be, you know, they're scattered out. They're cruising over the flat, and you catch one, like Dean said, you catch one here, you catch one there, you just keep moving. Trout, that's a little different. A lot of times they're around some structure. If I feel like there's a piece of structure of any kind over there, that's where I'm going to stop. Now that changes in Louisiana. When I've been over there and fishing for some of these bigger fish, they did the bigger reds, the bull reds on those 2 and 3 foot flats. If there was something odd there, I had a bay house that had been blown over in a hurricane, and just all the bits and pieces and parts of it were still laying there. And every time I went by that, there was mud boils and big bull reds all around it. And so it kind of clued me in that I needed to stop there every once in a while. And I learned where there was several other of those, and I would pull up and stop and really work those over well. So it was all about structure for me.
The other interesting thing here is, you know, you mentioned the mud boils. I mean, there's just so many. Like I said, this is really, I hope we're helping the listener and all our listeners with this, but it's really just kind of like what you see is, you know, around the fish, what kind of fish, what time of year, et cetera. But Dean, is there a time of year, and I know it's coming up, but I want to hear you say it, where maybe you'll be more inclined even on those long flats with redfish popping, where you might stop?
Of course, whenever you see a big school, looks like a herd of buffaloes.
Well, there is that. There is that. That would make me want to stop. I got to be honest.
That thought kind of passed through my mind there for a minute too, whenever I was saying that. But yeah, there's certain occasions whenever those big schools just want to be in a certain area where you will throw in there and you will catch one and spook the whole school, and they will come back to that spot. it's kind of interesting how some days they just want to be there. And then, of course, in that case situation, whenever you got 600 redfish swarming around, you always want to slow down in an area like that.
Or manatees.
Or manatees. All right. Before we get to there's another topic here, because before we get to what would Scott do, what would Caleb do, what would Dean do, a couple things. One more topic that I've been putting off for too long that I want to get to, even if we go a little long here today. But there's also this, because we've mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, the public input meetings for trout start today. We're recording on Tuesday, and I want to share this with all our listeners, because we all have our thoughts on the trout regulations and bag limits, etc. Today, October 17th, Bauer Community Center, Port Lavaca. Tomorrow, it's going to be in 3 different spots for your public input. The Saltwater Pavilion in Rockport Beach Park. Also, Texas. These are all like about 7 or 8 p.m. You can check it out. Texas A&M University Corpus Christi Natural Resources Building is tomorrow, Wednesday. And then also the Port Isabel Event and Cultural Center is tomorrow as well. On Thursday, the 19th, the meeting in Galveston has been moved to Texas City. So you got to make note of that. And then on tomorrow as well, the Bob Bowers Civic Center in Port Arthur, and also the College of the Mainland. So anybody who wants to do that, get in and offer your input. I know our guys have shared their thoughts on the limits and where we should go, but everybody has their voice there. So I did want to share that. Shout out to Shane Bonneau for sending me those dates. All right, one more topic here before we get to what would everybody do. It was a very simple question: sunny versus overcast. What changes when you're fishing, just in general? This is just a sunny versus overcast, tactical changes. Caleb, I'm going to start with you on that. You got a sunny day, not necessarily high pressure, but just, brighter day versus an overcast day. What are you doing? You knew I had to mention that.
I don't know how you saw that coming. How did you see that coming, John? I happened to fish on a sunny day today. And
yeah, how'd that go?
I think, I have my own opinions I keep to myself. All I'm saying is Compton, Larry, everybody texted me and says Scott doesn't do
areas if you had gas.
Sunny day versus cloudy day. Pretty much
just in general. Yeah.
The only thing that I'm really gonna change is probably my starting lure, and I say that emphatically. My starting lure. I've caught plenty of fish on a dark lure on a cloudy day, and I've caught plenty of fish on a bright lure on a cloudy day. They say if it's sunny, you go bright and flashy. If it's dark, you go dark. I don't particularly prescribe to that, but I do start one way or the other. On a cloudy day, I'm going to start with something like my morning glory is my usually go to the black and chartreuse. On a sunny day, I'm probably going with something that's white or maybe got some gold flash in it or something like that. But I don't stay away from it if it's not working. I'll swap back and forth. So long story short, not much of anything changes.
Yeah, and I don't want to be redundant here, so I'm not going to bug Scott and Dean too much on this. But is there anything else that's coming to mind? Scott, I'll start with you. Anything else besides that? Because I agree with Caleb on an overcast day versus a brighter day, tactically speaking.
For me, it's all about the sight casting part of it. Poling back in the backwaters. I would love a sunny day because I can see the fish so much better. Cloudy day makes it tougher. I know we're going to have shorter, quicker casts. We're going to run up on fish that are a lot closer to us before we see them. So we might change presentations a little bit, because those fish are going to be up tight to us. I'll get off into the fly rod things. I'm going to change fly rods. I'm on a fly rod that loads really quick. The TFO Mangrove is one I'll switch over to for that, and maybe even overline it a little bit so we can load up a little bit quicker and get the cast off a little bit faster. Sunny day, you've got a lot more time because you see the fish at such a further distance. and you can set up your cast a little bit better. The cloudy days, it's, oh crap, there he is, and better get that cast fast before we run over it.
And Dean, that seems to be especially the case in super shallow water like you fish.
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, the only difference on sunny days and overcast days is I'm probably going to wear more sunscreen.
Which also is important. Which is also important. No question about that.
No, those guys explained it pretty well. But yeah, the sunscreen factor is going to be a little bit more important. Go heavy on the chapstick and protect your skin.
All right. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? What would Dean do? Man, you know what? I've been looking at the weather a lot. It's been windy so far. But Thursday, Friday, I guess throw Wednesday in there, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then into the weekend. Dean, what would you tell our fine listeners to do this week?
Man, it's going to be a beautiful week. It's the one we've been waiting on for all year. That behind the second front, water temperatures on the shallows have dropped, into the high 60s for a couple of days with the wind blowing. And the tide, like I said a minute ago, the tide has dropped down a little bit, but it hasn't restricted access to any of the flats. You can still access everything. It's not like off the chart low like it will be in a couple months. But the next 3 or 4 days are just amazing. And then kind of on the weekend, if you believe the forecast that far out, we got a chance of rain and some other things start to happen. But Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday look amazing. So drifting the flats. Of course, in my area, we always start with top waters. I kind of expect some reds to start schooling up. They really haven't done that yet. Everything that we've been catching has still been singled out. But we've only had 1 or 2 days where the tide has dropped back to normal. But it should start. Things are going to start changing dramatically. We're halfway through October, getting close to November, and water temperatures where we like it. It's absolutely, I complain all the time because we live in the land of extremes where it's either, we went from 100 degrees to the first cold front where it changed. And I say, we never have in between days. This week is actually in between weather. It's going to be 60s and 70s with nice little south breeze. Should be some really good opportunity for anybody who gets out there.
I'll tell you one thing, Scott, that is on the table for me this week. Not that I wouldn't necessarily anyway, but with the weather the way it is and the minors coming in midday and the majors coming in later, this could be I'm going to be out there, make a sandwich. I'm going to be out there all day long. You can
make sure your tank is full of gas.
Well, I do. I'm paranoid about that stuff, but you can, Scott, what would you do? And you could be out there all day.
To fill up.
Yeah, that's true. I got to have my wallet. That's true. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, it is a good time to be out there all day. Saturday, it's showing everything less than 10 miles an hour, some starting today at less than 5. I know a lot of the reports have been popping up that the bull reds are running. It's a good time of year to go play with some big fish. Bull reds are out there. The jacks are around. The Port O'Connor jetties have been producing. I'm not telling any secrets there because everybody's putting it all over the internet. But yeah, it's bull red time. If you want to go play with some big fish. Those jetties down there where you're at, your wife might like to slide out there and pop her some big old bull reds. Maybe
that would be a blast.
Maybe a few jacks. Got a lot of bait fish moving out on the beachfront. It'd be a good time to go out there and piddle around and see what you can find.
She definitely will do that.
As far as the flats go, you got, like Dean said, it's your choice, dealer's choice, man. Go polling for some reds, go walking around in the shallows looking for reds. You can drift out in a little deeper water, pick up some trout on the drop-offs. Trout will probably be moving up shallow too with cooler weather. But if Dean likes that lower tides, he doesn't need to be looking at next week because your tide's coming back, buddy. It's going to be blowing.
Is that right?
Everything I'm seeing on Tuesday, Wednesday is 25 to 35 mile an hour southeast. That tide's coming back for you.
Yeah, yeah. Caleb, what about Mid-Coast? What's happening?
Man, I'm kind of in between what each of these fellas said. I've got customers coming in this weekend. I think they're flying in from like Alabama or something. So no pressure, right? I'm going to put gas in my boat. First thing Captain Caleb would do would put gas in his boat.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
That's a professional right there.
Yeah.
That's a professional angler.
Oh boy. Yeah, my customer is actually texting me right now. And my answer to him was, he said, should I bring waders? I said, probably not. We're going to be skip life, maybe beachfront, maybe back lakes. Where I'm fishing out of, I have immediate access to the surf, and I have immediate access to back lake stuff. Where I just looked at Windfinder a while ago, and it has a tendency to change, but I'm showing less than 2 on Saturday. On that day, I'm either in the beachfront, I'm in the back lakes, I'm looking for schools, I'm looking for stuff like that, and that's where I'm gonna live. I'm gonna mess around. But that being said, like Dean said, this is what I've been waiting on forever. This is dealer's choice. There should be in the Middle Coast, there should be birds working trout. The whole time I was out there today without gas, I was thinking, there's probably birds working trout all over the place. It's not full swing yet. It hasn't got the dump. It hasn't gotten the cold yet to really pop it off, but it should be solid swing. Well, mid swing. It's
and that's all the way up the coast.
It's Maldonado swing is where it's at. We're not Jordan swing yet.
Yeah.
And we're definitely not McCormick swing. We're kind of Maldonado swing at the moment.
Okay.
and
that's from Mid-Coast up, Mid-Coast down. Those birds sometimes working trout, but a lot of times it's gap.
West Matagorda south. Oh, good gosh! Don't go chase a bird. That's a terrible idea. But Colorado River north. Yeah, go check that out. See what's up.
Whoa. See what's up. Make sure to gas your boat. All right, boys. That was a lot of fun. Don't forget, Scott's the short I did with Scott is up right now on the Bite Me group page on fly fishing. It was really very informative. I'm going to get some out of Dean when I go down this week. And Caleb, I need to get into your inner sanctum, so to speak. That sounded weird. But I need to get into your inner sanctum at some point.
Easy, bro.
Nobody wants to be there.
I'm the one drinking right now. I don't expect you to tell me that.
That's hey, show me your inner sanctum. Anyway, to get a couple of short videos done.
What's your snap? You have a snap?
That's right. Swipe right. Anyway, you know where to reach our guys. Book them. Have some fun with them. They're a blast to be around. I'm actually going to be on the boat with you on Friday, Dean. I'm going out Thursday on mine.
And we got great conditions, man. It should be fun.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, hit our guys up and have a good time with them.
I got your wallet.
That's right.
So I got your wallet. So we'll be full of gas and
counts. All right, boys. Y'all have a good one. Appreciate everybody listening. Going to be a good week, man. We're going to have some good stories for you fishing next week. Catch them up. We'll talk to you next time.
Can anybody hear him when the music kicks on, or is